people not only of the Middle East, but truly of the world. We heard this morning from Fadi Ghandour, from the founder of Priceline, Tony Alumalu from Africa. But if there is a name in our region that doesn't even need a name, and it's sometimes known by 3 initials, and everybody knows those 3 initials, ALJ. Gone beyond even the need for a name, an entity, an organization, a person, ALJ. Now, many of you know the highlight facts of Mr. Latif Jameel. I want to make sure you understand that he, his family, and his 10,000 employees did something quite remarkable. They built the largest Toyota dealership with operations not only in the region here, but they've expanded into Turkey, Central Asia, China, and beyond. This is one of the largest corporate entities of our region. But for purposes of today, we're not even going to speak about the enormous success of that corporate entity. In fact, we're going to take yet another enormous success. Rarely in life do you achieve extraordinary results in 2 different domains. But I think what you will hear this morning is that these 2 domains go together. ALJ is not only known as one of the most impressive companies in the world, ALJ is also known as having 3 other letters that we really didn't know about in the Middle East as much. And those letters were very new to us a few years ago, called CSR. And the Latif Jameel group pretty much single-handedly took a leadership position in decisive areas in what we now know is CSR, long before we really knew it was CSR. So ALJ stands not only for corporate excellence, but CSR excellence. And if you talk to the ALJ team, you will know that those 2 things go completely hand in hand. One success was entirely the result of the other success. And so no man in our region brings together those 2 extreme successes in corporate and in responsibility in the way that the Latif Jameel group does as 10,000 people, but in their leader, Mr. Latif Jameel himself. So will you please welcome to the stage a man who made a new path for all of us in business growth and social responsibility, Mr. Latif Jameel.
Thank you for your kind words. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to begin by thanking His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, together with the Mohammed bin Rashid Foundation for Entrepreneurs, for inviting me to receive the Best Initiative to Support Entrepreneurship in Arab Countries Award on behalf of Latif Jameel today. I am honored and humbled, particularly since Sheikh Mohammed himself represents the gold standard for combining entrepreneurship with social responsibility. When you consider all his initiatives, from the compassion of Noor Dubai, seeking to cure 1 million people suffering from treatable blindness, to the creative excitement of Palm Island, Burj Al Arab, and Burj Khalifa, to name a few, you realize that few have done more to point the way to the social entrepreneurship that our region needs so urgently. As you all know, the world in general and the Middle East in particular faces spiraling unemployment. 60% of our region is under the age of 30. The MENA youth unemployment rate in 2011 topped 27%. That is more than double the world average of 13%. International office figures suggest that if unemployment is not tackled sustainably, the Middle East will have 50 million men and women without work in less than a decade. They will want the dignity of work, and they will not tolerate the indignity of being out of work. That is the scale of the problem. that threatens the foundation of our societies in our region. Badshah Jameel is one simple grassroots solution to the problem of unemployment that has, from small beginnings, begun to make a significant difference to the lives of thousands of people across our region. As you know, Badshah Jameel means beautiful gateway to prosperity in Arabic, and so it has proved. My inspiration comes from my late father, Sheikh Latif Jameel, who founded our business back in 1945. He taught me that every chief executive officer has two responsibilities, two jobs, not one. The first is to lead his business sustainably, profitably, and in harmony with all the stakeholders. The second is to help the community help themselves in a sustainable way. He inspired me to explore the growing importance of social purpose within business to generate sustainable, profitable models that serve a social community need, and especially to encourage the coming generation to realize that they too can be entrepreneurs. Philanthropy and charitable giving are important. They are necessary endeavors that have a valuable impact on society. If a business is to have a true social purpose that makes a difference that is permanent rather than temporary, much of its focus must be on finding, supporting, and growing entrepreneurship right across society. It's getting very loud here. To achieve maximum impact, I believe it must not just be any kind of entrepreneurship. What matters most is to encourage entrepreneurs who in their turn create more jobs to save more people from the anguish of unemployment. Badshah Jameel is dedicated to creating jobs and encouraging entrepreneurs to help themselves. A very heartening aspect of BRJ, as it is locally focused enterprise, is that it shows you can leverage innovation for job creation without necessarily investing billions of dollars on new technology. So let me be clear. Badshah Jameel, BRJ, is neither a philanthropic endeavor nor a charity. Badshah Jameel is a business, but it is a business with social purpose, and its business is job creation. To some, the notion of turning profit on something where the core objective is delivering a social good is somehow inconceivable. But to think this way fatally misses the point of BRJ, its purpose and its strength. BRJ is fundamentally about empowering people, giving them control over their lives, a stake in their future. By being profitable, BRJ can be self-sustaining, expand and grow to create more jobs and to meet needs of more people. It is a model that has been great success over the past 10 years, and it is one I would gladly see emulated. The more competitors we have, the more jobs that will be created. I believe you cannot treat unemployment simply as a socio-economic problem, because few governments have the resources, the hard cash, to always buy their way out of the problem. In our region taken as a whole, with a few shining exceptions such as Dubai, neither government spending nor foreign investment can generate anything like the number of jobs that we need. Job creation has to be treated as if it were itself a business, where the unemployed workforce becomes the customer of the business. Each job created can provide not only employment for the individual and skilled worker, for the employer who hires him or her, but also an income for the job creating company. In 2003, when BRJ was established, we started modestly with just 2 job creators, myself and the director of my office, and a couple of $100,000 in capital. Our target was to encourage and train 10 unemployed Saudis, just 10, to become taxi drivers, mini entrepreneurs. We lend them money to acquire a taxi each, soft loans, but not loss-making ones, and happily they were all paid. When this modest experiment worked, it sparked an interest from both companies short of trained labor and individuals without jobs. So we said, let's expand our service. We had no grand plans. We simply grew organically, as a business does. And now there is a team of more than 700 full-time job creators working from more than 36 branches in the Arab world and Turkey. They specialize in all types of job creation and training, from healthcare to catering. We deliver employment that is both self-starting and self-sustaining. This is because we operate at ground level, matching real needs of individuals with real needs of business and providing sustainable training to make it all possible. We create jobs one by one. A network of branches close to the customer is just as necessary for us as for a bank or a grocery chain. Our sales network of branches in various cities and neighborhoods puts the job creation sales team in the field in direct contact with their job creation markets. They are then able to quickly identify barriers and difficulties and take action to develop the right solution for the unemployed people in the region. And just like any other business, our sales and marketing team must be motivated by commission, by rewards and recognition. So BRJ not only creates jobs and training, but also helps close the gap between educational institutions and the private sector requirements, provides job-creating microfinance to help housewives and young women to make transition from aid recipients to producers, encourages young people to start their own small business, creating jobs for others as well as themselves. All these BRJ initiatives are united under one roof, under one place. Since inception, BRJ has successfully helped to create 320,000 job opportunities in the countries where it is operating: Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Syria, Morocco, and recently Turkey. Before we begin their training, we are able to guarantee a job opportunity at the end of the process for all our trainees. So far this year, we have successfully helped create over 100,000 job opportunities with receivables of over $150 million. Our ultimate plan is to help create 500,000 jobs annually in the Arab world and Turkey through a team of 2,000 job creators distributed among 200 branches in those countries. BRJ is an open-ended initiative, not a closed shop. If others are inspired to try out our project of their own, we will be happily work with them to form and transfer our knowledge and experience for them to be our competitors in job creation. We'd consider it a success if BRJ became only the #2 or #3 in job creation business. Better still, imagine if there were another 20 BRJs working to make unemployment yesterday's story rather than tomorrow's problem. We would see 10 million jobs opportunities created annually. And that will cause a tremendous positive effect on society and economies that would be extremely significant. If we are to secure the better tomorrow we all want, then business leaders should make job creation a job, a business itself. As business leaders, we have a duty and an opportunity to seize the moment for ourselves and for our society. But we need to act decisively. If the coming population bulge is to be turned into an opportunity for greater prosperity. Business has skills and techniques to empower people who want to work. Participating and supporting such scheme does not make common sense only. It makes business sense. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and my sincere thanks again on behalf of everyone at BRJ for the recognition and honor this award bestows on our initiative. Thank you.
We have a short amount of time because we're running way behind, and the conference organizers have asked us to help make up some of that time. And let me tell you, if there's any industry that knows how to go fast, it's the ICT, telecom, communications industry. So what I'm going to do is quickly introduce three of the biggest firms in the world reshaping the social and economic landscape of this part of the world, and then ask them some hard questions. All right, you ready for the hard questions? But let me introduce you first, if I might. We have with us Osman Sultan. He is better known not only for his name, but for this amazing logo right behind us, DU. D-U. You cannot be anywhere in this part of the world without seeing that logo. And that logo is not only in this conference, which of course he has been a great supporter of, but across the region and recognized across the world. What you may not know is that Mr. Sultan has been a champion of this industry in Egypt, in France, in the United States, and in many countries. He has grown the industry across the world. The most recent of these successes is right here with DU. So he brings a global perspective in so many ways. Akhtar Badshah, I'm so sorry, is from a little company you may not have heard of called Microsoft. Actually, once they were very small. On the Inc. 500, I create the Africa 500, I'm sorry, the Arabia 500, the Inc. 500 many years ago. In the 1980s was a little baby company, number 84 on the Inc. 500. No one could even figure out what they did, called Microsoft. What is that industry? What in the world are those people up to? And now, of course, it is a name that needs absolutely no introduction. What I do want to give you is Akhtar's title, because in fact I'm going to ask you some interesting questions. He is the Senior Director of Microsoft Citizenship. Not a country citizenship. Think about this for a moment. Microsoft Citizenship. What a fantastically interesting title, which we will want to discuss what Microsoft citizenship may mean. And then Taha Khalifa on the end here with Intel Corporation, another one of those little bitty companies that no one understood what they were doing initially, that would go on to revolutionize not only your own industry, but everybody else's industry along the way. And he is responsible for many activities, many CSR and beyond, across the entire MENA region. So we're sitting here with three people we can ask a lot of questions of. They've seen it, they've done it. So let me give you the good news and let me give you the bad news. And none of this will be surprising to any of you, but given our time is short, we're just going to get right to the bottom line. The good news is your industry has revolutionized the Middle East. Clearly, it has opened up and oxygenated the entire region socially and economically. Without this industry, this conference could not be imaginable. So much of what we do every minute of the day is imaginable because of what you've done. If you ask the Arabia 500 what's very important to them, way above capital, interestingly, it will be ICT infrastructure. In Lebanon, one of the greatest challenges is is the instability of the ICT infrastructure. This is an enabler of social progress, of economic progress. And of course, if you go to Jordan, so many of the entrepreneurs are just pushing the envelope in the ICT domain. That's the good news. You have cut the path that allows many to fall behind. Here's the bad news, and it's not your doing, it's just the bad news that we have to address. Our region is falling behind. When we talk about job creation, you must look at the opposite side of this coin. We are creating jobs, but we have more people unemployed. We make a big mistake, in fact, talking about the number of jobs we create, because we are actually falling behind. Every year, more and more people in the region are unemployed and underemployed. This is the fact. So now we have the good news. They're cutting the path ahead of us. We have the bad news behind. We're actually falling behind. And so the question I'd like to put to each of you in turn is, how do we play big? Governments have had their chance. I think we understand that they are not the solution provider for jumping ahead. We're falling behind. They can help, but somebody else has to drive this train. You are big drivers of massive, not trains, but satellite dishes, everything out there. What can we do in the private sector that we might call CSR for massive social progress and economic progress? And if it doesn't come from courageous industries like you, where is it going to come from? What does it look like in the next 5 years to make a big leap forward socially and economically? So I'm going to hand it to you, because you've been here and everywhere else around the world. And how are we going from falling behind to falling ahead?
Well, thank you for the introduction. And it's true that the two things that you mentioned as good news and bad news, first, let me call it the digital space, because that might talk more to than ICT, that is still, you know, kind of in this. It's more than this. It's everything being digital is a tremendous opportunity, one that we have never seen probably in the history of humanity in terms of, that's one thing. The second thing is the need of this region. And I very often say we missed a major step in progress, that is the Industrial Revolution, the steam revolution and the consequence. And this part of the world, we do not invent technology, we did not invent technology, we did not invent products, we did not develop, we buy and use. Now, the digital space, to answer your question, what can we do? I personally believe that the digital space can be a great opportunity for us to catch up, hopefully leapfrog. That is the area in which I believe a lot can be done. How? It's difficult. Why is that? Because if you look at this digital space, when you consider innovation, you have two things. And you have what is called the intelligent design. Telecom and, you know, a lot of industries worked with intelligent design, master plans. And you have the space of internet, where you saw a lot of things just happening, mushrooming randomly. And when I call the iterative adaptation and the natural organization of what seems chaotic. And this is not something that we should be scared of. Somewhere in between there is a cursor you should place. It's like the education of your child. You put your child in a curriculum, of course. You put him in an education program in school, and you plan that. But on the other hand, you know that this is not enough, and you want your child to learn from the daily experiences, etc. So, to cut it short, I think we need to think what is needed to create an ecosystem. Once you create an ecosystem, and we have seen this, Silicon Valley has been an ecosystem that was created. It's not about just having, it's about everything that would attract the mind, the businesses, the capital, all this combination together. We need to be able to create such ecosystems, and then believe me, with all these guys out there, each of them, I've been stopped by maybe 15 people with a lot of passion, with a lot of energy, and they tell me, I have an idea, I want to talk to you about that. I I think we need to create an environment where they just come, they try, they could fail. Probably some of them, certainly some of them would fail. It's not important. With the passion they have, they would stand up, do it again, do something else, learn for it, and then we need to create that environment. I don't have a recipe. I think it's a matter for policymakers, for regulators, for the people themselves, for government, and we are seeing just take what happened in this part of the world. The previous speaker mentioned, you know, this gold standard or shining example that is here. The Dubai Internet City story, Dubai Media City, Dubai Knowledge Village. All this was just, not all of it was, you know, planned with an intelligent design. A lot just happened and things progressed, and then we see the result, you know, every day and every day. So this is what I believe we need to do.
Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure to be here. And it's, first of all, just fantastic to see the noise coming out from next door, because that's really where the entrepreneurs are, the young entrepreneurs that are trying to jumpstart this the economy of this region. And I think great kudos that we are seeing the development of a startup economy in this space. For Microsoft, it is clear for us that if we don't have business partners, we don't succeed as a company. We have over 700,000 business partners that build technology on top of our platform, and for every dollar that Microsoft generates in revenue, our partners generate over 8, depending on the GDP of the country. So clearly for us, our business is dependent on that. And what we have done is that we have supported over 50,000 startups around the world over the last 4 years, where we've launched a new program that's called BizSpark, which essentially means that we provide technology at no cost for startups for 3 years to help them jumpstart their business, put them in an ecosystem, introduce them to business models, provide them support through introducing them to the venture community, because we want them to succeed. And we've also set up 102 Microsoft Innovation Centers. 75% of them are done in partnership with local governments, so that we can create that engine that is required locally. The unfortunate part is that we only have 9 in this region out of the 102 that are there in 42 countries. So clearly more needs to be done here, and that means that we need more local partners, whether it is universities or governments that are co-investing with us in setting up these centers where we can allow for social entrepreneurism to thrive. The other space that we invest in is social entrepreneurs. And we are working with various partners, whether it is development agencies, bilateral donor agencies, to help create and incubate social entrepreneurs both here and around the world. In fact, we actually just announced a Imagine Cup grants. Imagine Cup is one of the largest student competition using technology around the world. Over 390,000 students participate. And these are students from universities that are using technology for social good. What we have seen is that many of them now are starting their own ventures based on what they have submitted in the Imagine Cup. And we have now started a second competition which actually funds them. And last week in the Bay Area, we just announced the winners. There were 5 teams that won, and one was from Egypt, focused on creating a healthcare system using mobile phones. So we see innovation coming out of this region. One was from Uganda. Last year, the winner was from Jordan. So we are seeing some great innovation coming out, and it is really our role as a company to continue to support them, invest in them, make sure that we can partner, whether it is with the US State Department, whether it is with the Silotech, whether it is with the African Development Bank or the World Bank, or other companies, whether it is Manpower, Coca-Cola, Walmart, to ensure that we can actually partner to infuse this ecosystem here so that we can bring about change.
Thank you. I think at Intel, we look at entrepreneurship as a way for creating jobs. And in this region, creating jobs is very important. As we've heard before, there is an unemployment rate of around 27% in this region, which is one of the highest in the world. And how to go about creating jobs, entrepreneurship can help create the SMEs and can help drive some of this SME business here. One of the data points is that if you look in EMEA, which is specifically Europe, you'll see that the SMEs are almost around 95% of the overall enterprise business in Europe. That is responsible for generating almost 90 million jobs. So a huge number of jobs are creating through these small and medium enterprise. In the US, more than 80% of the jobs are created through these SMEs. However, when we come to the MENA region, we find the numbers are much smaller than that. It's almost a third by the estimates that we have. So how do we go around this? To us, we think innovation is key. How to get the innovation and entrepreneurship culture into the minds of the younger generation. At Intel, we've partnered with a lot of the ecosystem because we believe that this is a huge undertaking that needs a lot of collaboration with our partners to be able to be sustainable, to create certain activities. For example, on the education, we help drive some of the entrepreneurship programs, curriculum, at the higher schools, at the higher education, giving them curriculum on entrepreneurship and innovation. When these students get introduced to that, they're able to think on how to turn some of these innovations into entrepreneurship. We do have a program, a worldwide program called the Intel Science and Engineering Fair, where students from around the world compete on ideas that solve local problems. So things related to traffic, related to energy, related to health. So these are local problems that they find solutions to. And throughout these solutions, they compete and they get evaluated by the top scientists and entrepreneurs in the US. 1,500 students participate there on a yearly basis. And there are around 15 countries in the Arab world that send students there. And we won some prizes over the last few years. So given these guys, the idea of innovation is one key point. Then when it comes to the university school, being introduced to the type of entrepreneurship plans is very key. If you look at the curriculum of a lot of the engineering and a lot of the science schools, there is no part about entrepreneurship. It's just focused on the science, it's focused on the engineering, but there is nothing clearly there that maps this into, or maps these innovation into a business idea. That's why we partnered with UC Berkeley to have a full class of entrepreneurship that is ready for universities to teach and introduce the students on entrepreneurship and how to create these business ideas. Such business ideas can be turned into plans, and we created a program called the Worldwide Challenge, where these ideas, these entrepreneurship, are invited to participate, compete. The winners go to the US, where they meet some of the venture capitalists. They get introduced to some of the funding agency and give them some of these access to funding and access to ideas. The other part of entrepreneurship that is needed and job creation that is needed is access to fund. At Intel, we do have what is called Intel Capital. Intel Capital is more like an investment arm of Intel. Over the last 10 years, they spent over $10 billion investing in firms and technology firms specializing in technology, hardware, software, services, and solutions. And the Intel Capital devoted $50 million in 2005 just for the MENA region to be able to help some of the ideas and to fund and to be able to basically invest in some of the new ideas and some of the companies. We managed to invest in 8 companies in the MENA region. The last company that we invested in is actually working on some solution in the telecommunication and fourth generation, around 200 engineers in Egypt. So giving the students and giving the young entrepreneurs the access to funding is also a crucial part of creating the jobs which is highly needed in this region. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. So let me, again, in the interest of being challenging, only to broaden our minds. Good news, bad news. Good news. What would we do without the leadership of these 3 outstanding organizations, both in laying the ICT infrastructure and the digital infrastructure, in pushing this agenda across universities, startups, so on and so forth? Can you imagine our region without this? No. But I think we also have to imagine something different. So let me add to what you're doing. By no means stop what you're doing. In fact, I hope you continue to significantly enhance what you've just spoken about, because it's a but-for situation. But for what Latif Jameel is doing, what you are doing, we have no floor here. But we got to raise the ceiling fast. So let me just come back to you in a very different way, and then we'll ask your questions. Right across here is the Arabia 500. 500 the fastest growing private companies in the region, about $10 million average size, growing at 50% a year. It's excellent. We went and asked one question, and it will come right back to you. We said, where did you come from before you became the Arabia 500? Who did you work for? Were you an 18-year-old who thought of an idea? 75% of them look like the exact same person. They worked for Intel, Microsoft, Orascom, Do, all the names that we have heard from. It turns out in the United States and here, the scalable companies come from other scalable companies. Doesn't that make complete sense? Think about Google. They are one firm that has basically spun off thousands of firms. Microsoft, Intel, Orascom, Do. They are themselves. You have painted the agenda outside you, which is raising that floor. Now we have to burst open the ceiling in a big way. So the Arabia 500, if you find out where they worked for before they became the Arabia 500, have worked for the best companies in the world, very much including these 3. If you look at the American economy, the PayPal mafia, the Google gang, you know, all of it spins off from the big, dynamic, hot companies like this. So I want to take it inside. You've told me the outside strategy. I want the inside strategy. And the inside strategy I'd like you to address is how can you turn up the dial very fast to spin more of your employees, more of your suppliers, more of your off as entrepreneurs. That is the American miracle. It is not the startup arena. That's important. The American miracle are firms like you that just keep creating waves and waves from inside out. You've told me outside in. Now I want to hear inside out. So we'll go the reverse direction. Let's start with Intel.
That's a very good point of discussion, because at Intel we used to have something called a new business group. This is when an employee can come up with an entrepreneurial idea that could be totally different from the type of work that they're doing at the company. They go to this group and they offer the idea. And they get exact funding. They get the funding and they get 1 year to work on a business plan that they present to what we call MRC, Management Review Committee, to decide on the viability of this business plan. So giving our employees the opportunity to think of something innovative, what we say out of the box, that has something to do most likely with the technology, with the environment, with the local solutions, and being able to still be part of Intel while developing this idea and having access to the fund is one of the key programs that we found extremely useful in promoting these types of from the inside to the outside type of innovation.
I think this is the conversation we have to have in our region. If we are not spinning off massive value from the major corporations who have, it is not spinning off from government, and we will wait 5 years and some of these gentlemen and young women walking around will become. Today's opportunity is to work with Intel, to work with Microsoft, to work with Do, and spin spin out as much as we possibly can. If we don't do that in the next 5 years, they will catch up. But we have 5 years to use the power structure you have built as the greatest training ground and leverage ground. So now we'll go to Microsoft, which of course in the United States is known as a major spin-off ground like Intel is known. What do we do with your footprint in this region to build from the inside out?
Actually, that's a great question. First of all, it is happening. I mean, whether companies actually create specific programs to encourage or not, this is going to happen because technology is moving so quickly, and particularly today with the app technology, the application technology, it's very easy for anybody to start anything and be successful. So what we've seen is that our employees are leading incubation camps for application development. They come up with an idea and then they go out and spin off. Bill Gates started something called Think Week, which was essentially an opportunity for any employee to write something about an idea that they have, and he would take a whole week off with a whole lot of Diet Coke and read everything and come back and literally rip apart every idea. But what came out of that was new ideas and new products and new solutions, and many of them that did not stick within the company, they took it out. And you've got a whole ecosystem. You've got an ecosystem of employers, you've got an ecosystem of your managers that want to be supportive. So you see what that does is that it actually creates a momentum of its own, and then you have your own partnership that is built around it, whether it is with the companies that you're working with or the Microsoft partner ecosystem that we have, that allows our employees to take their ideas and go out, and yet there is something that they can work with rather than being out on their own. And you know, this whole app model and the partner ecosystem is essentially you're still connected to the company. So you're not away from the company because your company becomes the biggest beneficiary of what you are developing. So it allows you to do that in a way that you can actually start generating revenue because you've got a big company that is going to utilize your services.
Very good. So what I would like to say, and I want you to respond to this, is we have to have an inside-out strategy immediately. If these three firms could spin out 1,000 employees in the next 2 years, we will be in a whole different dimension. They will, on the startup side, meet up at a certain point. But we have the greatest companies in the world, whether they're Sabic, Aramco, Intel, we have them. We have not thought of the inside-out strategy, and we have to think about it fast. What could we do tomorrow for a massive inside-out strategy?
I think that put it. Can I have this one? I think that the situation is a little bit different for telcos and the standard. And telcos are, as we speak, going in their mutation phase because of the impact of the world of internet. That's another debate. But when it comes to technology company, we are witnessing these structure approach to really spinning inside or nurturing this. In telcos, what you see around the world, I'm going to talk about Do differently because Do is a younger company, but in the experiences that I've witnessed, you see telcos going through a fund and saying, okay, we dedicate a certain amount and we participate in companies, but they are outside. This is a kind of VC type, venture capital type of approach. You do not have today this idea of nurturing from within this because these are service companies and not technology, and most of these ideas are around new applications, sometimes new business models, because if you take some of the innovations that happen, I mean, there is not any technology innovation in Facebook, and look at the impact that Facebook did in the world. It's a business model and it's an application that people owned and use in a different way. So I think that is it. And in telcos, actually, when I discuss with some of the top executives, there is really an insistence on, if we want to do this, we have to do it outside of our telco kitchen because of mindset. We still are driven, whether we like it or not, by engineering type of, you know, in a world where services, applications that people are using, you need a different mindset. You need a more entrepreneurial mindset. Let us not forget that the world of telco came where everything was regulated, planned, designed, pricing thinking was different, and the world of internet came from a completely divergent way. And we are now witnessing this explosive, you know, meeting of these two universes. And we are moving from everyone, I like to call it we're moving from the unshared certainties, because these guys, they had their certainties, the software world, the IT world, the technology firm, the telcos, the media, etc. We had, and we did not share these certainties. We are moving from these unshared certainties to shared uncertainties, because we are now sharing, we are forced to share, but we are sharing uncertainties because still business models, revenue models are not very clear. And that's a great opportunity. That is what I'm calling the ecosystem. And you see a lot of brilliant ideas that just want to come and plug in this ecosystem and do something. And this is what we need to do. I fully agree with you. We need to ensure that within the talents that we have inside, there is a mechanism. In Do, we're a young company, and as well there is an evaluation at this phase of our life of, you know, what's the risk appetite that this company can have. We have not formalized yet. And I'm saying yet because I believe strongly in what you said. We need to formalize this framework in order to enable this to happen.
Again, I think we have to win on many dimensions, and I don't mean to beat up on any of you, but you are the winning team. So you have to, always the winning team is the one you shower more attention, more spotlight. So it's not all your responsibility, but you are the winning team. 20% of the guys on the Arabia 500 are Intel guys, are HP guys, all of it. And it makes, so when we wrote an article in the Harvard Business Review called The High Intensity Entrepreneur, our major discovery is that the Arabia 500 comes from the best companies in the world. The best incubate the best, which incubate the best. We have it. We must absolutely go at it with everything we had. So outside, yes. Inside, yes. I want to ask you to do one more thing. So formalize the inside out. In the United States, not only do companies do this very well, they spin off, they spin off, they spin off. It's just this constant process. And on the side, we have some business plan competitions. But the United States did something that if we did this in this region, would meet us where we need to be. And only you guys could make this happen. So let me tell you what it is, and then we'll have your questions. And I mean not to return to the United States constantly, but they actually have succeeded, notwithstanding recent catastrophes in finance. They have succeeded on a number of dimensions. The United States government said, government contracting, the biggest customer of the United States is the United States government. The biggest customer in Egypt is the government. The biggest customer in Saudi Arabia is the government. These are government economies. It is impossible to imagine progress, impossible, without, and I don't mean little itty-bitty mom and pop, successful spin-off entrepreneurs having a seat at the table to bid for government contracts. There are cozy relationships between government and the large incumbent players. Somebody has to step in and say you have to create a seat at the table. So the United States government has something very sleepy agency now called the Small Business Administration, but legally it mandates that world-class smaller companies have a seat at the table. If they don't make the bid, if they're not good enough, okay. But they have to have the opportunity to compete. We do not have that opportunity in this region. We do not. It is a closed-door system. The biggest customers are not available to all this entrepreneurial space. We have to open up that door. You guys speak for this region, and you speak to the biggest customers in this region. How do you open, so not only how do you have an inside-out game, how do you open that door to the biggest customer?
That's that's a vital dimension. And here, when I say you have to formalize the framework, if we take, for instance, here, we are incenting, the government is incenting companies to give a part of their procurement number to these small enterprises. So it's becoming a formal process. I was just having a discussion with the chairman, and when we are seeing these, you know, these people who were awarded, and I told him we spent something like 20 million just for these guys, because we are now making a point to formally put them in the process. We're not a government, but the government is taking as well. So, and the government is taking to semi-government and even private sector companies, pushing this incentive. Have these guys that are, you know, the SMEs, and figure out how you can push this. And the chairman just said to me, we have to think that this number should double and should then increase. So we are bringing in a formalized process these companies as stakeholders and players in every bid or every procurement process we have.
I think that's exactly it. If you open your doors and help open the government doors, we will go fast. Microsoft, I'm going to come back to your amazing title, Microsoft Citizenship. To me, this is what Microsoft Citizenship means. It means spinning off the entrepreneurs from within, opening the doors for participation. And that's why I love your title. Will you tell us kind of where we can leap forward in this domain?
I mean, I think, you know, what Mr. Osman said is correct. I mean, you know, we really need to focus on it. The other thing that we have done is, you know, we are a technology company, so we've actually developed tools. We've got technology for governments to use which makes procuring open, right? So anybody can look at it. It is transparent. It's a system that allows you to track. It allows people to apply. It allows to see where the money is going. It allows to see how progress is being made. So we are working with governments to get them to implement that, because we believe that it is good for them, improves their productivity, but the end result is that it also opens up doors for others to participate. So you can kind of look at it from a different way, because we are not going to be able to come into the Emirates, given our size here, and really talk to the Emirati government and say, hey, you got to be more transparent. But we can actually give them a solution that says this is a much better solution for you to do your procurement, and in the process it actually increases transparency.
So at Intel, almost 20% of our business comes from the smaller local integrators in the market here. So these are not the HPs and Dells, no, these are the small integrator, we call them the channel. We have almost 250,000 local integrators around the world that they integrate our products, and they can bid with these products. One interesting thing that we saw in some of the governments is that the governments give the local players extra points. So for a tender, if you are a local integrator assembling your PC or assembling your product in the country, you get extra points that can give you an edge even if your price is not up to par. This has proven very successful in some of the countries, and in making these smaller players get an edge and win deals. What we realized is, because of the economies of scale, these guys are finding it very difficult to compete on price with the larger player. So we created a program where we match-make some of these local integrators, smaller players, with the big ODMs in China. So we can do what we call integration of all of their requirements, and we negotiate on their behalf with the big ODMs to give them some economies of scale so that they can compete, they can still survive despite of the economies of scales of the big multinational. These 2 points proved very successful in still growing this channel. And again, out of our $53 billion per year, 20%, 22% exactly, come from these local integrators.
So what I think we have the opportunity is not just to invest individually, which is how we imagine the ecosystem. We have to create systems. Systems. You guys build systems. All right? We have to build the system of high growth, high impact entrepreneurship. We are not doing that here, and it is one reason we're falling apart, but we can. So again, this is not in any way to diminish what you're doing. It's just to give further encouragement. Go from the individual ecosystem, isn't it nice, to the systems of success. You are the models of success. Let's build the systems of success. So what could we ask or add to, yes, the gentleman over here. While we're waiting, I'd love to see you show up at Davos a year from now, a year. We don't have time. And tell the world the new system of success you're jointly putting in place, maybe with a few of your other friends. The conversation in Davos is not helping. We need systems of success. You can lead that. A year from now, please go to Davos. Tell us the system of success with Aramco and a few other friends that you're putting in place for this region.
Well, thank you very much for interesting discussion. Well, I'm a scientist, and the way I see things, the model you have talked about, spin-outs, it's a very good model, but to me, it's just like a billiard ball with the energy, where you fire it to other balls, then the momentum and then energy will be transferred to other balls, but eventually it will stop somewhere. So that is my concern. I would propose a different model coming from the opposite direction. Let a lot of beginners, if you take the history of these companies, they have started Google and others, Intel, they have started just you know, not working for any big companies. So that's what we want from this region, coming from the opposite direction. No, not everyone will be working for Intel or these companies. What we need is really focus on education, where we can create leaders who understand science and technology and innovation.
And I didn't want to suggest that it's an or proposition. I began saying you must unfortunately expand what you're doing on the outside and magnify that, but we have to complement it. We're not creating the synergy. We're not getting liftoff unless we have that other side as well. So we absolutely not only have to continue, we have to do more from the outside and creating kind of the wild effect, I mean the kind of what we call the wild flower effect. You plant many seeds, but you are the systems of change. So I hope, I didn't want anybody to misunderstand that it's an or situation, it's an and immediately situation. So yes and yes.
If I may just make a point, you know, just one point. One of the things that actually start some of these activities is to have research labs and research incubators in these environments. Microsoft has actually just opened our first research lab in Egypt, which will allow us to do some of that work, which gets innovation to come from here rather than just assembly coming from here. So these are things that we need to kind of do, and it takes an ecosystem development first to happen before you can do that.
We're going to have to speed right over here. Good, already have a microphone in hand. When you're done, the moment you finish, pass it to the lady over there.
Dear gentlemen of the panel, dear lady moderator, thank you for a wonderful session. I have one question related to the incentives of companies to spin off startups. I understand the social value, but is there a way to build a system of economic incentives? Do you keep ownership, partial ownership? Do you keep equity of those startups? How can you explain to me how a business would have a business interest in spinning off companies? Thank you.
I think there is a continued ownership that can happen with that, and that's the model that we used in some of the spin-off that we generated. When I talked about the plan or the process that we had at Intel, where employees can work on ideas, some of these ideas were spin-off. The other ideas were integrated. So it depends on the technology, how it impacts the company versus the outside world. For the general purpose types of technologies and ideas and innovations, these can be spin-off, while we can continue to own some partial, we continue to have some partial ownership of that. Some of the other technologies that we considered sensitive or could be crucial to the companies, they were kept inside. The other point is that we have the Intel Capital, which is the investment arm of Intel. Their model is to evaluate the company And a big part of the evaluation is on financial terms. So they look at it completely from an investment opportunity, and they make the call of whether to invest or not to invest based on the ROI and NPV calculations.
Yes.
My name is Sami Al-Qadi من الطفل العربي from Arabian Child. I have a question that's a little bit different, but it's for all of you. There's a new research that the Federal Reserve Bank and the World Forum Foundation is working on, and they're seeing that to build entrepreneurship skills, they need to invest in the earliest years of life, which is actually from birth to year 3. And that's again very different than employees working and developing skills from working in Intel or HP, but starting at the beginning. So what do you think about that?
I mean, early childhood learning is critical. And as a company, we actually invest a lot, particularly in our hometown in Washington State, in supporting the early childhood initiative that we have in the state. Because we know that the brain develops between 1 and 3. We work with parents, we work with the underserved community, we work in schools to ensure that kids get equal opportunity to be successful in middle school and then high school. And for us, STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, math, is a critical piece because we want people that are coming out that are trained in that, not necessarily all going into that field, but at least trained in it so that they can be successful.
Yeah, I think this is a subject for which I'm very passionate. I believe, I spoke about the digital space, and I believe that the digital space is completely changing and disrupting the education models that we had. I myself participated in a lot of initiatives where the title and the purpose of the initiative was, how do we get internet in school? And people thought that this is, you know, internet for everyone, internet for a computer for everyone, etc. And we believe that this is about, you know, I connect to this thing called the internet. But now with the way people are using the internet, I'm keeping saying, actually the question is, how do we get school in the world of internet? Because the school is transforming. So the equation, even this is the first time in humanity where the younger know more than the older. And this is completely going to change because they have, and all of us, as young as you are or as young as we are not young enough, not you ladies of course, I'm talking to the men, are not young enough to have been the internet natives or the digital natives. My young kids have a completely different mindset. So I fully support what you're saying, and I think in all humanity, you know, innovation happens either by necessity or by, as I said, the intelligent design, or by serendipity, by accident. And we will see more and more because there is this boiling thing happening in the schemes of knowledge, even on the schemes of authority, etc. We will see more and more happening without us even realizing that this is happening. This is an act of humility that I think, I mean, 10 years back down the road, I was in conferences and we were talking about the next big thing will be mobile payment, in the years 2000. We are in 2012, the next big thing didn't. Guess what? Social networking happened, where we in telcos, we didn't even notice that this happened, and it swiped everything. So I think we need to keep this fresh eye on the things that are happening. But very valid point you're raising.
One just addition to that is two things. Going back to the talk or the idea that the older now don't know as much in technology as the younger ones. One of the biggest barriers that we found in deploying computers in schools is that some of the teachers are reluctant to use them because they know the students know more about those. So it created this pushback from a lot of the teachers on deploying computers in school. At Intel, we created a program to teach these teachers, which is called the Intel Teach. It was a plan to train 10 million teachers worldwide on the use of computers in schools. And in the region here, we managed to train 1 million people. The other point is that we're looking at the 21st century skills on education, which are the problem solving, the critical thinking, IT literacy, all of those. And we want to make sure that these are implemented in our education programs in the schools. And we've participated with a lot of the governments and the NGOs here to drive, including UNESCO, to drive these into the education programs we have in the schools.
Great. We are going to have to close. So let's just say we have a lot of pieces. We are redefining education. We are investing in individual entrepreneurs. We're building the startup world, but we do not have the system yet. We are counting on you. Governments have had their chance. This is not what they can build. You guys literally pull up the ground, put cables under it. I mean, you're in the system business, whether it's at the engineering technology level or literally pulling up the cement and putting some. If we did this with you, with all the talent that's so loud in this space, what couldn't we do? So we are asking you, maybe in a year from now, if you could come back, and you only ask the best to continue doing more. It's always the case, so I know it's always more and more. But let's thank already the best and look forward to hearing from them maybe next year about what more they are doing. Thank you.